Welcome back to Motors and Meats. We have had ourselves a little incident with the 944. Sawyer was driving home from the gym the other day in the rain, around the corner, giving a little bit too much of the beans, and the back end came around on him, spun, and he hit a sign. He's fine. The car is fine except for this one fender, and no other people were hurt, so that's a real big plus. But you know, just checked everything out. The hood pops open like it should. Everything is nice and straight except for the unstraight fender. I drilled a couple of holes in it and pulled it back out so that the tire wouldn't rub, so that we could keep driving the car until I get the replacement for this. It did take off some of the paint right here on the edge of the door itself, but we'll just have to live with that. And I've got a replacement coming there. Fortunately, the Planet 944 group on Facebook is really a good place to be. I posted pictures of it there and asked if anyone had recommendations where to find one, or if anybody in the group had some, and several people commented one person's name, and I hit him up, and he's got about a dozen of these laying around, several of them in red. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in Mississippi, so not too far of a drive, and we're gonna go and pick that up week after next and learn how to do body work, I guess. It looks like the thing just bolts on. It should just be a straight bolt-on replacement, but like most things, you never know for sure until you get into it. And every time I think I've got a simple task at hand, I tend to be surprised to find that that's not the case. So hopefully this will be the surprise, that it will be just simple and straightforward, and we'll get this thing back on the road in prime condition. It's still on the road, but get it back into shape like it should be, and then we can get back on to more content about this thing. So things that we've done with the car, I want to go ahead and run through that, because we have done a ton of things with this car since the last time that the car was on the channel, and most of it is under the hood. I think whenever we last left off, the car was not running, the engine was torn apart, and we were replacing the head on it. So the head needed to be replaced because we bent a couple of valves, because the timing belt broke 3 weeks after we got the car home. And when the timing belt breaks on one of these, it's an interference engine, which means the pistons are going to collide with the valves, bending those. And it was actually cheaper to buy a replacement head from eBay than it was to actually buy the valves and then do the valve job. So we just went that route, and it was a pretty simple fix, I think, although it took us about 3 or 4 months to get it done in our free time. But that's okay. That's okay. It just meant that we learned everything about this car that maybe we did or didn't want to have to learn. Anyway, the car is back running again. We had a few other kinks we had to work out. The radiator cracked. We needed to replace it. And when we replaced the radiator, we also ended up needing to replace some hoses, because the hose routing was not the most straightforward, and I ended up having hoses laying against the alternator pulley, and the alternator just shredded the hose, and that hose, actually 2 hoses, got shredded during that process, and sprayed all of our coolant everywhere. Got that done. Then I was following Sawyer in his car and noticed a bunch of smoke started rolling out from underneath the hood, and there at the very back of the cam tower, there's a block-off plate that holds the back side of the cam in place, and it's held on by 3 bolts, and 2 of those bolts had come completely loose, so the thing just swiveled wide open on the back side and was spraying oil out and making a nasty mess. We were able to get it home and replace those bolts and replace the gasket. We actually made a homemade version of the gasket first to get us by right away, and then ordered one and replaced it again whenever it came in. Also, we replaced the shifter bits. Let's take a look inside here. Yeah, we replaced the shift boot. It needed to be replaced. It was torn in several places, but more importantly, inside of that, underneath that boot, we replaced the linkage with the shift kit from 944 online, and now it feels a lot more firm than it did before. The rear hatch, we worked on this, just fine adjustments for probably a few hours worth of work. And right underneath here where the hatch pins drop into, there's a latch that if you don't have it lined up just right, it's not going to seal, but whenever it does seal, you don't feel any, oh, that's not sealed. I'm sitting there talking about it, and now it's rattling loose. Maybe that's because his backpack's in the way. Yeah, let's move the backpacks now. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Okay, we just didn't have it closed good. But anyway, the pins that drops into, if you don't have those adjusted just right, then we're going to get some rattling like we just saw, and you don't want that. We also fixed the sunroof seal. The previous owner had replaced it, or maybe the guy before him. Anyway, he had put it on inside out, so it was standing up, and I'm sure you could see in an old picture or video where it was actually standing up about, you know, a ½ inch high. And I was like, I just knew that couldn't be right. So I looked into it, and sure enough, that had to be done. Most recently, I thought that the ignition switch was going out on it. So we ordered a new one of those, and then like a dummy, I didn't test that day that the battery had not been drained because, you know, of course I love to do things the wrong way first and then do them the right way. All that was wrong was that the heater switch had been switched on, and that fan runs so silently. You have two different knobs. You've got the one at the top for the air conditioning and then the one down lower for the heater, and it was set to 1, and it was just running and drained the battery down, and we didn't know it, and that was all that was to that. One other thing on the inside, the rear view mirror had fallen off, so we had to get some more adhesive and remount that. Back to the exterior, we had all the dents in the car removed. There was one that was right here that's no longer there. There were probably a dozen small dents all around the car that we had popped out. And unfortunately, the biggest issue that we had resolved was on this fender. Mike can still catch the gash. There's a little bit of a gash in the paint, but there was a dent associated with that gash. And our paintless dent removal guy, Jim, spent some quality time taking care of it. And anyway, I guess that was all for nothing because now we have to replace that entire fender, but that's okay. A few other things on the to-do list. This bottom valance right here, you can order a new one of those in plastic for about $300, and I'm guessing probably another $200 to have it painted. So we'll get that done. Air conditioner still needs to be done. This passenger side window still needs to be repaired. It's not rolling up and down, even though it has new switches. Probably needs a new motor. The driver's side window does go up and down, but the regulator is not very smooth. It's kind of notchy, and so we might replace that regulator. The stereo stopped working. It's on the same fuse as the cigarette lighter and the dome light, and the dome light's still working, so I'm not sure why the stereo quit working. And then big picture as well, the suspension probably just all together needs to be replaced. It's really soft and squishy, and I'm not convinced that it's not the original suspension underneath this car. So we'll get that done at some point down the road. It's not hurting the way it drives, other than the steering wheel kind of shakes a little bit around 55 or 60 miles per hour. But anyway, that's a quick catch up on the car. More to come on it. If you're following along, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will see you on the next one.